John Grant here in Los Angeles. It's the 405 Live. And David Limbaugh, author of The Great Destroyer, Barack Obama's War on the Republic, joins us. Welcome, David.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. David, this is your second book on Barack Obama. The message of The Great Destroyer is Barack Obama's America is completely at odds with Americanism, traditions, and specifically the republic we were created to be. Do you think the 40-some% of Americans who approve of Obama don't know or just don't care?
Well, there's an ideological divide in the country, which Obama has fostered and exacerbated. He's trying to polarize people while claiming he wants unity. He's dividing us on the basis of identity politics, race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, and economic class. And he's constantly demonizing groups and playing the race card, demonizing the wealthy, saying that the middle class needs to be preserved, pitting labor against management. And he's just created an adversarial, hostile climate. And I think he has revved up his own base by falsely saying that Republicans are not looking out for their interests. They want a smaller America. Basically, they're bigoted. They're bigoted because they're against same-sex marriage. And they don't believe in expanding the welfare state. While we believe in a safety net, we don't believe that you ought to incentivize states to expand the food stamp program or extend unemployment benefits ad nauseum, ad infinitum. We believe that we ought to create a more equal opportunity society rather than one that guarantees equality of outcomes. But you've got people on his side, polarized leftist ideologues, that are going to be with him no matter what he does, and irrespective of the facts. I don't believe he's as popular as some of these polls say, and even if he is, I don't think they'll translate into votes in November, but that's just my view.
So how does Barack Obama get away with trumpeting the middle class and at the same time attacking it by destroying the stable economy that comes with, the coal industry, blocking oil exploration, dismantling health care, and all the good jobs that go with it? How does he get away with that?
Well, I'm not sure he does get away with it. He continues to say that he's a champion of the middle class, and the poor, and minorities, while they happen to be the hardest hit under his economic policies. Black unemployment African American unemployment is higher than any other group, and higher than it's been in years. The lowest 20% of income earners are doing worse than they've done, including under President Bush, way worse. All economic classes are doing worse. And he's taxing the middle class, and he's getting ready to unleash incredible taxes through Obamacare and regulations. He has sucked the oxygen out of the private sector and by taxes and regulations, and making them fearful of the tsunami of regulations and taxes that are going to be unleashed as January rolls around and as Obamacare is implemented. And I don't think when you have sustained unemployment between 8 and 10%, the longest period of sustained extended unemployment since the Great Depression, when you have the worst economic recovery following any recession since World War II, you can't convince me that he's going to be able to convince the middle class to believe deny their lying eyes. I just don't believe it's going to happen. I believe a lot of this is propaganda, and he won't be able to have it both ways in the end, as long as Mitt Romney takes a lesson out of the page out of the playbook of Governor Walker, for example, and stands up for what he believes and shows a stark contrast between Obama's record and the Republican vision, the conservative vision.
Well, he clearly hates what he believes was Western colonialism on the part of the U.S. and Britain and others in the past centuries. But isn't he doing the same thing here at home when he makes this big Soviet-style fist at sovereign states over, immigration, labor laws, health care?
Well, if you're analogizing tyrannical behavior and bullying behavior, yes. But he also, I don't know about the anti-colonialism stuff. I do believe he has a grudge against America and believes it was imperialistic and an international bully, and all the other stuff. All of pre-Obama America, I think he has a grudge about. And yes, some of the same criticisms that he levels against America falsely he ends up engaging in the same type of behavior as to the states, or as against any of his opponents. And so he's got a war against our states that he doesn't agree with, that don't roll over on immigration laws or on voter ID laws. And he doesn't just attack them. He says they're racist for wanting to make sure people present an ID to prove they are who they say they are in order to vote, or if they want to enforce their own borders. He goes after them as bigots and tries to get their laws eradicated, so he has his own Department of Justice at perpetual war with different states whose policies he doesn't agree with.
And internationally, Egypt and Libya were toppled with American sweat and treasure under Barack Obama, and the door was swung wide open for the Muslim Brotherhood.
It is imperialism, and it's intervening in affairs where we don't have a strategic national security interest. I mean, we would think we'd want to guide our foreign policy by safeguarding our national interests, and yet he intervened in Libya when we didn't have any kind of a national interest at stake, and it really wasn't for humanitarian reasons, because if it had been, he would have gone in Darfur and Sudan or other places. So my theory about why he went in is to show that he was resetting American foreign policy. Under Barack Obama, we would defer to international bodies. We'd be kind of a transnationalist nation, no longer the international cowboy under George Bush who would intervene unilaterally. We would do it under the umbrella of the United Nations or the Arab League, and we would defer. And that's what I think his experiment in foreign policy was to show that that's what we would do. It had nothing to do with Libya. It was just kind of a test case to demonstrate how wonderful the United States is under his watch. And the same thing with Egypt. Well, not the same thing. But with Egypt, they decided to help oust Mubarak, who had been an ally of the United States, irrespective of what you think about him in his own, how he was a dictator or whatever toward his own people. At least he helped create stability in the region. He was favorable to Israel and to the United States. Now you've got the worst of all worlds by opening the door for Muslim Brotherhood, which is dedicated to the annihilation of Israel, which is hostile to the United States, and which will create instability in the region, and definitely won't be any less tyrannical than the Mubarak was.
Do you see any? Do you see any glimmer of hope in the mainstream media as far as telling us who he really is? I mean, Wolf Blitzer chided him for his handling of the NAACP meetings, and you're starting to see some blowback on the BS about Bain, the negative tone of his campaigning. Is the Chicago way going to push the press over the line? Finally, do you think?
Absolutely not. No,
really.
There's no honor in the mainstream media. Yeah, there are in certain ones. I think Wolf Blitzer is honorable, but he's still a liberal, and they're all liberals. Almost all of them are liberals, but I don't count on the mainstream media watchdogging him. We have to accept that they won't. I mean, we can complain about it, but at least we have an alternative, a new media, led by my brother Rush, by Fox News, by Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, other conservative talkers, bloggers, and Twitter, the conservative community on Twitter. I just think that we are, and the Tea Party out there, we're hopefully watchdogging and providing the other side for some balance, because you can't count on them. The liberals, even if they get disgusted, some of the mainstream media with some of the stuff Obama's doing, ultimately they're going to try to facilitate his reelection because he believes, like they believe, ultimately in ideological terms.
One last question here. Late this week, Barack Obama swept away the work requirements of welfare reforms dating back to, Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich. Is he in a scorched earth mode? In other words, is there any doubt about what this guy would do with no election to stand for?
Well, that's been my contention all along in The Great Destroyer, in my book, that he is dismantling America's first principles, the American idea. He's against rugged individualism, American exceptionalism, equality of opportunity. He wants to redistribute wealth. He wants to expand the welfare class. We had demonstrably favorable results under welfare reform. We had less black poverty, less black childhood poverty, less black illegitimacy. And he's reversing all this because ideologically he believes it has to be done irrespective of results. And so, yeah, he did this with immigration. went around Congress, did an end run around Congress on deportation of the so-called Dreamers, even though Congress wouldn't pass the Dream Act. And he's continuing to act ultra-virus, that is, unconstitutionally, usurping authority, and I see him continuing to do that even while he's got a re-election pending. Can you imagine what he would do if he were reelected and perceived himself to have a mandate?
I don't want to think about it.
Uses of authority.
No, I don't want to think about it. The book is called The Great Destroyer, Barack Obama's War on the Republic. David Limbaugh, you are a busy guy, and we thank you very kindly for your time today.
Thank you very much for having me, John.
John Grant here in Los Angeles, and we'll be back with more on the 405 Live.